Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Elena Sierra. I'm the Director of Networks for FPSA. Our partner in saving energy costs for our members is Transparent Energy. Here today to help talk about that is David Blair and Jane Seagraves, both from Transparent Energy. Combined, they both have 25 years experience in the transport in the energy business, and they're here today to talk to you about how they can help save you and your expenses. So go ahead, David. Why don't you take it away?
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Also, thanks to the FPSA for what was a very warm welcome for myself and for our Vice President of Associations, Jane Seagraves, just a couple short weeks ago down in San Antonio, Texas. It was a wonderful conference, a great venue, a lot of good conversation and dialogue. For those of you who might remember me, I'm David Blair, Vice President of New Business Development for Transparent Energy. We are, as I said in San Antonio during my speech before the kickoff breakfast, we are here to help. We are your official energy consultant and advisor, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Today we're going to cover a little bit of what I touched on down in San Antonio, and we are truly living in historic times. A lot of commodity discussion down there in San Antonio, a lot of talk about wheat, flour, food commodities. Obviously for this association, well, obviously, as you may have guessed, I'm going to stick to energy commodity, today being electrical commodity and its direct settlement costs that are in almost every case decided by what's happening with wholesale natural gas. So good to be with you. We'll go through this section, a little bit of a market update, market landscape, and then we're going to stop for questions. And then for those of you that weren't able to attend the conference or just need a good review, I'm going to review a little bit about us and what we do here at Transparent Energy. And I do want to mention, if you have smartphones, you want to follow us on LinkedIn, please do so. We put a lot of important information that we compile internally and use a lot of external data and narratives to send out a lot of great information on the socials, important energy market updates, educational energy content, familiarization with energy procurement. All of our experts are happy to help with that. You see there on LinkedIn. And then today, just as our gift, our way of saying thank you for your attention and the opportunity to serve you at FPSA, follow us directly during this presentation, and you'll be entered into a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card. Without further ado, some news. So for those of you that might remember when I mentioned this down in San Antonio again at the conference, or any of the information that we've been sending out through our bi-monthly market intelligence packages or our great newsletter that we send out to our prospects and our clients, the price of wholesale natural gas, that being the main source of what we use to generate power in the United States, during the pandemic was trending at one of the lowest points in deregulated history. As you'll recall, the different states in the United States have different utility zones and different laws pertaining to what is open trading for natural gas, or known as deregulation. That meaning in a certain state like my home state of Texas, you have the option to shop your supplier for electricity. The natural gas rules are a little different compared to a state where, say like Missouri, where it's open trading for natural gas, but there is no deregulation for electricity. So we're talking about deregulated wholesale natural gas, and back right during the pandemic, it was trading at less than $1.50 per MMBTU, July of 2020. The demand since then since that time has decreased. One of the main reasons, obviously, is most unfortunately a lot of businesses shut down. Some, again, most unfortunately, did not come back, did not return. We refer to that in the business as demand destruction. A lot of need for the pull of either physical natural gas or electricity was not needed during the pandemic, or was mandated to be shut down. So a lot of my friends and family in the area, a lot of natural gas producers being down in Texas, or I know there are many of you, the members of FPSA in a state like Pennsylvania are familiar with fracking, familiar with natural gas, how this stuff is extracted, put into physical pipelines, and then used to generate our power. A lot of them went belly up. They went out of business. They just couldn't make any money because prices were so low. and then so a lot of the larger ones were able to hang around. Some of the smaller mid-sized folks never came back. During that time, we saw historical lows for the price of power and gas, and there was no indication that there would be any material change over the next 3 or 4 years. Okay, so what's happening out there? We've heard something completely different today, and we look at this is a historical look back at wholesale natural gas rates. When I got into the business back in 07, 08, natural gas wasn't so cheap. Power wasn't always so cheap, depending on where you were in the country. And then, as more pipelines were set up, as more activity pertaining to the actual physical movement of natural gas and being put online to generate electricity and power plants came about, then we hit this period of very cheap energy. About 2015, 2016, we entered what was known as sort of the fracking boom or the fracking honeymoon. I'm sure you're familiar, but it's basically a new technology, a new method in where we could extract natural gas, and that created a glut of supply. Energy was very cheap. Physical natural gas and the electricity that we use natural gas to generate, very, very inexpensive. Things are changing, and they're changing rapidly. This is where we were back during 2020, the pandemic. You can see at the bottom the dates. I know things in Texas started to shut down around March. Some areas of the country were a bit earlier, but you see here that that blue line, this is one section of the country that represents settlement cost of power, and then that orange line representing the physical natural gas. This is where we were in 2020. Here's where we are today. So prices have gone up. They've continued to go up. And as of now, there's no narrative or data that I can share. I have a couple ideas, which I'll mention later, but there's really nothing to indicate that this is going to stop anytime soon. And this is another really compelling graph that we wanted to include today. These are all the what are known as futures averages. These are all the averages for wholesale trading of natural gas. And so when you go to market, whether you have a year, 2 years left on your contract, if you're maybe on supply with utility and looking for competitive supply, this is our main indicator of where settlement cost of retail power might be, and then of course the physical natural gas. Electricity is interesting because it is a commodity, but it's not really a thing, it's an event. And so again, to reiterate, we have to use this data generated by natural gas futures to figure out where electricity will settle. So at the top there you see at the time pulling this during the pandemic, October of 20, what some of these futures rates, you can see toward the back end of the curve, nice little numbers under $3, nice cheap energy. And then today, I've not seen this in my career. I've been doing this a while. We've jumped over. I thought $5 was a big deal. Our team was quite surprised to see that. Now we're over $6. And then the issue becomes, for those of you that even have a year or 2 years left, I want you to take a hard look at this for your gas and your power, because this is what has us really paying attention and monitoring. When these back end averages start to rise and that curve flattens out, that's when everyone turns essentially into a price taker. It cuts down on the strategy that we have at our disposal to serve you as members. So why is all this happening? I won't read through all this. I'll hit the highlights, but obviously weather effects. Historically, weather has been the biggest factor that affects the performance of natural gas in the United States. So in the summer of 21, some of you might remember, I certainly do, being down here in Texas, and our neighbors over in Louisiana remember Hurricane Ida. It hit the Gulf Coast and really had a significant effect on operations and the way that we handle some of the movement of this physical natural gas and some of the liquefied natural gas, which I'll talk about next. It pulled a lot offline and really forced the industry to reevaluate how we calculate natural gas storage trajectory. LNG, liquefied natural gas. For those of you that need a reminder, we have figured out how to liquefy this stuff, and we can put it on these massive ships. We can move it around, and we send them out of these large shipping terminals in Texas, Louisiana, and we can ship it to other places that don't have the natural resources that we do here in the United States, referred to as LNG. That's important to remember. This means that we now have the ability to sell large volumes of natural gas. Really, this is a very new market. Before it was theoretical, it was hard to do. We didn't have many shipments, and that has completely changed in a very, very short order. LNG rates for 2021 have risen substantially as domestic sale range between $4.50. I just showed you that last chart. I had to update that now to $6. Well, they're selling this at a rate to say a country like China, the largest importer of natural gas, certainly the biggest buyer from the United States, at $45 per MMBTU. And I would make a claim that's probably closer to 50 now, given what's happened in the market in the last couple of weeks. Large, massive volumes to China. They're stockpiling, they're shipping it in droves like we've never seen before. And again, I want to reiterate, this is a brand new market. It's just begun. So that's something to watch. Then, as you know, first and foremost, thoughts and prayers to the people of Ukraine as they handle this awful situation where Russia has invaded their country. There's unavoidable business we have to discuss. I don't want to seem like I don't have a heart, but to the business part we're discussing today, the United States has put a rush on additional terminals we will now need to ship even more liquefied natural gas to Western Europe. Why? Because depending on what happens with this conflict, Western Europe, Europe as a whole really could be completely cut off from Russia for their energy needs. And the United States just surpassed Australia as the world leader in the exporter of natural gas. And for any of you that haven't looked at a globe recently, we are a lot closer to Europe than Australia. And so it's going to be us. Oh, and also we have cut all Russian ties for imports of oil, which is about 10% of our supply. Again, nothing bearish, no narrative on containing this price. Further domestically, I don't think it's any secret. This administration in Washington is not interested in large fracking projects. They've made it very clear they're going to focus on expanding technology with wind, with solar, bringing large-scale renewable online, and also it doesn't look like there'll be further pipeline expansion or activity, at least in the near term. So all these things create sort of this perfect storm. And then there's one more thing. And those of you, if that wasn't enough, all this happening at once, for those of you that remember my speech down in at the conference, I am a Chiefs fan. I was a little disappointed in the Super Bowl, this last Super Bowl. I thought we had a good chance to be in it, but congratulations to the victors. But for those of you that watch, whether you are a football fan or whether you like the commercials, you notice something. The car commercials. For the first time, almost without exception, what did you notice? Every single one, not just Tesla, not just a startup, but all these major US car makers have committed to changing over their fleet of internal combustion engines to electric. They're electrifying their fleet, basically, is what I'm saying. It's happening now. Some of you probably have friends or colleagues that have purchased an all-electric vehicle. The ranges that these batteries go on are growing. The technology is expanding, but you still have to have electricity to power all these millions of cars. What are we going to do that with? Renewable energy is wonderful. Down here in Texas, we're at 25% wind. It's a great source of energy. It's cleaner than coal, less volatile than nuclear can be. But we're just not there yet. We're not even close to take, say, 30 million cars and electrify them. Where is that going to come from? There'll have to be new power plants that are built. How are we going to generate that power? You guessed it, more natural gas. So I wasn't kidding when I said before that we really the area of cheap energy in the U.S. is over. So in summary, the combination of LNG pressure and supply and EV charging pressure and demand indicates that pricing will not stabilize solely because of reduced weather pressure post-winter. Well, as I've said, it used to be that weather would really be the largest factor. We're not even certain that weather will affect this, maybe a little bit, maybe temporarily, but not like it used to. So this means that the cost of physical natural gas will continue to increase, and thus, as I've said, the settlement cost of power at your facilities will continue to increase, not according to me, but according to the data and the things going on around the globe. This really is just showing you what's happened with LNG exports since 2017. The main takeaway is surging interest in global LNG supplies in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine is helping to underpin the next wave of LNG export facilities, which I mentioned, coming out of the United States, shipping to Western Europe. Some massive increases you can see, where this was just a fledgling market, sort of almost more theoretical, or an idea that we could do this. And then now here we are in 2022, as you can see at the top there, really rapid increases. And of course, these groups are making a lot more margin selling it overseas than here at home, and we're feeling it. Really, the main point, the main takeaway on this slide, these are rig counts. We had an all-time low in later 2020 for rig counts for oil and natural gas, and due to a desperate need for domestic supply, some of these rigs have been pulled back online. You can see the big drop there during and after the pandemic, and then how many of these rigs have come back online in 22. In addition to talks between Ukraine and Russia, however, a renewed COVID outbreak in China is leading to rising shutdowns as Omicron spreads rapidly. China is world's largest importer of oil, LNG, and coal, and economic disruptions due to COVID lockdowns could provide relief to extraordinarily tight international energy markets. So we're pulling on more rigs here, but that is quite a process to turn the ship. So the key takeaways for today, I don't want to be an alarmist, and I don't intend to scare anyone, but this is the data, this is what's happening, and it's our job here at TE to make sure that you're informed and that you have some strategies moving forward. Large energy users of electricity and natural gas should consider fixing at least a portion of their usage further out than they might have historically. I'm going to be so bold as to tell you that we know what's going to happen in the future, but we are looking at this data, and we've seen a lot of large energy users. We advise a lot of associations. We have a robust book of large manufacturers, private equity. A lot of those that were shopping short-term have completely turned just a 180. 12 and 24-month purchases for years have now turned into 60 and 72-month positions, hedges. Why? Because we don't know where the top of this is. So if you do that, if you look, say you've got another year, 2 years, 3 years in your contract, it's worth coming to me, coming to our team. Let's have a look at what's out there for you. Some of the markets are more volatile, and you're gonna get hit harder. Everybody's gonna face increases. There's no more quote unquote cheap gas. So what kind of increase are you facing? Is it better to sort of take your medicine now and not get really sick later, to use kind of a traditional Southern analogy? But if you do that, then this way you're capped. You've sort of stopped the bleeding. Likewise, if for some, you're saying, okay, David, well, what if we do that? What if we take an increase out in 24, 25? You take your increase and we watch the market. Your current contract won't change. We're not going to interrupt that, but we're putting something spoken for out there in 24, 25, locking, fixing your electric rate, your gas rate. If something happens, and as we know in the last couple of years, a lot of somethings can happen in today's world, we will track that. We'll monitor it for you, and then we have tools at our disposal, blends and extends. In some rare scenarios, we can unwind a hedge. The point is it keeps you in control of your spend. So the summary is that the data indicates the riskiest of all behavior is simply sit, wait, hope. That's not really a strategy. That doesn't mean you have to go to market, but it means you should look. So waiting seems to be the riskiest. If nothing's done and the market continues upward and this data is correct, and this triples, quadruples, quintuples, whatever it might do, by the time your contract is due, for those of you that have a year left, 2 years left, 3 years left, and didn't consider looking at it now, you purely become a price taker. You know you have to do something at a certain point. So look at doing something now. Look at the options. We can review that with you. I would ask you not to just sort of hope for the best. Doesn't mean something might not happen. This might not level off, but that's where we're at right now. And I appreciate your attention on this market update. And I think we're going to pause now with any questions you might have. I threw a lot at you. I'm happy to field any questions. And I guess I'll turn it back over for questions now.
Yeah, David, thank you so much. That was very interesting, and I will open it up for questions. And it looks like we got a first one. When should I be looking to renew my contract?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I hear a lot when we're reviewing with prospects and clients. We've got a couple years left. We're good. Well, now more than ever, let's really look at what does that mean you're good. Your lights are on, your equipment's on, but for some reason, sometimes energy commodity isn't thought of as much in dollars and cents. I don't know why. It's just the nature of the industry, I suppose. I would look now, even if you have, it's not intuitive, right? You haven't done that in the past. You got a year, you got 2 years left. We're always looking at these contracts at least a year in advance, at least a year in advance. Very proactive market-based firm at TE. Now, I would even say 3 years out, it's worth looking at. Doesn't mean that you have to do anything, but it means that we can go to your incumbent supplier, see what they would offer you for an extension, and then you have the option to extend with them, continue to watch the market, or take it back for a future auction. But I would look, I would do a full review now, just given the state of the market. Look at it right now; it can't hurt.
Okay. And in the next 12 months, where do you see the markets going?
I'm going to say something that some of you might be shocked. I don't know. I'll be the first to tell people I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. If anybody tells you what's going to happen, red flag. What I can tell you is all these things that I've mentioned, the increase in LNG, the current state of the politics in Washington, the shift over to this new era of energy, green energy, the renewable is finally here. It's no longer theoretical. And with the conflict in Ukraine, even I would say even if there's a turnover politically in the next few years, it's going to take a long time to change any policies about domestic natural gas. So I expect this to continue to increase, and I expect future continued volatility. It's really going to take some other factor that we can't predict yet to bring this down, and so far the data doesn't indicate that. So at least at these levels and higher is where the data indicates today that this is going to go.
All right, and then we have a third question. If the war in Ukraine ended today, would prices recede?
I mean, it's a great question. The geopolitical part of this is really complicated the mix. We already had LNG. We already had a change in administration in Washington. We've got the lowest accessible amount of natural gas, and we've got EVs going online. This conflict has really thrown a wrench in the mix. The short answer is, I don't really see a way that this conflict just ends as far as an economic standpoint. Even if there were some sort of agreement reached, I expect that markets will continue to stay volatile. Now, one could argue that oil and gas flowing from Russia into Europe would help stabilize the situation, but it does appear that regardless, Europe has decided that they're going to be a major importer of natural gas, and we're going to be the ones shipping it to them. So no, I don't expect it to change. Even if I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know for sure, but the data doesn't indicate taking away one of these factors is really going to do a whole lot to change the trajectory.
Okay. I don't see any other questions that have come in, so I'll throw it back to you.
Sure. Thank you. Those are excellent questions. I appreciate these questions. And again, I just want to reiterate, any question we get, we just go off of data. We go off of facts. We don't try to really predict the future. So we look at that. We look at weather models. We look at geopolitical situations. We look at we have a great team. Our analysts, our pricing desk. We look at a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, it's about data and facts, and that's what we try to base our conversations with our prospects and customers associations, the FPSA. It's based on data and facts. So I'm going to go over just a couple of factoids about Transparent Energy. Again, for those of you that didn't know, or you're new to the realization that we're now your official energy advisor and consultant, I'm going to go through a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we do it, and then I think we have another Q&A panel at the end, if I'm not mistaken. But as of to date, we've transacted more than $2 billion worth of electrical, natural gas, and green credit transactions, creating more than $110 million of value created for our clients. I think this number is even higher today, but we have approximately 2,200 clients across the U.S. in over more than 100 utilities and in 22 states. We've run more than 10,000 pricing events or auctions. That's what we're known for, is our reverse auction platform, or our sealed bid auction for some of our smaller and mid-sized customers. We have more than 75 registered suppliers. That's one of the largest book of suppliers in the nation. And as you can imagine, simple economics, the more suppliers competing for your business, the further we can help drive down the price. And we're really proud of this. We're first now in the nation for reverse auction administration for community choice aggregation in the US. We've done several large scale community aggregations that were offset by RECs or renewable energy, most recently Sustainable Westchester, and then the city of Yonkers, just outside of New York City. Great folks there. Happy to be of service, and those are the two largest we've most recently completed, and it puts us in the one spot. The most positive business outcome of whether you're government in the private sector, you're in cold storage, refining, whatever it is, what is the positive business outcome? Why did FPSA partner with us? What can we do that's different? Well, our platform is designed to outperform any other globally known procurement process by at least 7 to 8%. And I'll dip into exactly how we do that. As I mentioned, we're a very proactive firm. We're not a standard broker. We're certainly not a supplier. We're not just chasing down the expiration dates of electrical supply and natural gas. A lot of times you'll see even the most well-meaning companies sort of treating those energy commodity contracts like a janitorial contract, where it's just expiration date to expiration date. It's really the opposite of what we do. We go on what's happening in the market, what's best for the customer. We're going to look at those trading rates I showed you. We're going to explain it in a way that's quick, pithy, as our president likes to say, and make sure that you really understand when the ideal time to go to market is. For those that aren't going to the market at the right time, they may never know it, but it could be a $250,000 mistake, $1 million mistake. You have to go to market at the right time, what makes the most sense for your load volume. That represents on average about 2 to 3% of that 7 to 8 we talked about. Larger supplier network, I just touched on that. The average increase when we get involved, if you've done what we call a standard paper-based RFP process, or you have an in-house team or a broker, when we get involved, the average increase in supplier pool, meaning more people competing for your business, thus more competition driving down price for you, 200 to 300% more suppliers for your members than what you'd get in any other known process. All suppliers are vetted internally and by their relative PUCs and utilities, solvent, relevant blue chip suppliers. Live reverse auctions, the platform is designed to compress the supplier's margin to the lowest possible point at any given point in time. So just as a sheer byproduct of running an auction, we're essentially creating a black market. We're creating an event that can't be duplicated by the most well-meaning consulting shop, broker, haggling with suppliers. It's a perfect system. It eliminates almost all human error, and the fact that it's day of, and these suppliers have under their employee teams that do nothing Monday through Friday but try to figure out how to win on our platform, you're going to see some crazy margin compression day of, on average, another 2 to 3% of the aforementioned 7 to 8. And then we eliminate the risk premiums. For those of you that have shopped with a standard broker in the past, have called suppliers on your own, all these suppliers, and we have a lot of our team used to work on the supply side, and they can attest. All these suppliers, the pricing that you're sending it to you outside of our process and platform, they've got a 2 to 3% contract value risk premium built in. Why do they do that? Because there's really no conviction, there's no process behind what they're doing. Typically they're pulling pricing, talking to one broker one day, another supplier the next day, and someone's child gets sick and they're off the desk and someone fills in. You can get pricing that way, somebody can make an Excel sheet and you can do it, but it's 2022. Our process and our platform will peel off an additional 2 to 3%. Why? Because the suppliers know 95% of our contracts, of our auctions, result in an awarded contract that day. We do all the work ahead of time. We answer all the questions of the executives, of the attorneys. All of it's done so that we can go in a calm and deliberate manner to day of auction. And those suppliers don't need to do that. They know, again, when transparent energy is involved, 95% of the time, a contract's going to award that day. They strip out those risk premiums. We ensure that. That's an additional 2 to 3%, thus rounding out the 7 to 8% outperformance, how we are going to outperform anybody else in the business. And that's at least 7 to 8%. Let's highlight those words, at least. In many cases, it's far greater. But these four things, if they're not being done correctly, even if you have some kind of technology that's great, if it's not backed by the process and the team that knows what they're doing, you're not going to get to the 7 to 8. I'm happy to say that as of now, we can do that. I'm also happy to announce we are changing with the times. We're a very proactive firm, as I mentioned, and this was a lot of credit goes to our owners to put all this in place before it happened. But we could see this renewable energy futures finally upon us. It's not the 1970s anymore, where it's theoretical and a little bit of solar comes into play, and then you kind of don't hear about it for a while. This is meaningful, and you just follow the money and look at the major car makers, and you see that this is really, we're going through a transition. Natural gas is going to be the gap fuel, but we're happy to offer through our auction platform and our process carbon offsets, renewable energy certificates, RECs, community solar, renewable backed contracts, offsite power purchase agreements. I'll even throw distributed generation in there, virtual power purchase agreements. These are all new renewable projects where our Vice President of Partnerships and Renewable Energy, David Braun, will step in. He and his team will work with my team to make sure that first and foremost, we're looking at both of these at the same time. It's much more effective to run an auction for your standard power, but then include, say, renewable energy credits, RECs, whatever percentage you're looking for, because in many cases, not all, but in many cases, you can have a high percentage renewable product for your electricity at your company for the same or lesser cost than you do it if you have sort of one REC team that shops the RECs and then another standard paper-based procurement team. It's much more effective to do them through the TE platform, and we're happy to announce that. This is a snapshot of what the software looks like. You at your facility, if you wanted to take a look at what we do, we gather just a couple of documents, pull your usage, and then if you decide we take you to auction, this is what it would look like. It's color coded by tranche or by term. You can load any type of product if you wanted to, for those of you familiar with the products, block and hedge or fixed rate, whatever you want to do for your electric or natural gas. And then this is yours. This is a cloud-based link. No digging through files or Excel sheets. It's one link that you own. You click on this and it shows you the timestamp bids from all the suppliers, current bids on the top there, and the best bids, obviously the lowest price at the bottom. It's all there. And from wholesale to retail, you have the lowest trading rate at the time you went to market. And if we're doing our job and we do it well, you went to market at the right time. This is what it looks like. It's intuitive. It's aesthetically pleasing as software goes, and it's our own software. Ownership has put millions of dollars in this, always perfecting it, always improving it for you, the FPSA member, for private sector, government, any customer that we bring on board. So that's a little bit about the positive business outcome of talking to someone like me. I think probably, if I were to guess, one of the reasons that this partnership was formed. We're happy to serve you as members, and I'm happy to field any questions about who we are, how we do it, why it's different, why it's better.
That's terrific, David. So let's open the floor to some questions. I'll just give it a minute. And David, thank you. We are excited to have you guys as a partner in helping our members bring down the energy costs, and especially with how crazy it is out there. So we do have one question. How long does the whole process take with transparent energy?
That's an excellent question. I know we've covered a lot of information, and it may seem a little complex. We've only got so much time for me to present today, but the truth is, from the time that we engage with an FPSA member to the time we would potentially take them to the auction is really no more than 2 weeks. Could be as little as a week and a half, but no more than 2 weeks. And the total time needed from a CFO or an executive who's part of the team that does the procurement, really from A to Z, no more than an hour tops, 45 minutes. And that includes me running through the presentation, going to what we call the pre-auction call, about 5 business days before we actually go to market. We do just a nice, easy, calm call, a look at the market, and we'll actually show you the pricing we think the auction can achieve. That call only takes about 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. And then we just require that you watch the auction day of and are available to award if you decide to move forward. So all in, the time period where we do all the work on your behalf, we work for about 2 weeks. You don't hear from us again until we're ready to go. For the customer, all in from the beginning of the introduction to actually going to auction shouldn't be any more than an hour total. And that's broken up. So very little time on your part, a lot of time, a lot of resources on our part, but that's what we do.
That's great. How much documentation do you need to start the process?
We need your social security number, your bank accounts. No, very, very little. There's no overarching. I think one of the reasons let's face it, we've talked a lot about food commodity down at the conference, we talked about energy, but what's the most precious commodity? It's our time. A lot of customers that work on these procurement teams, these massive facilities that are using billions of kilowatt hours, they love the savings, they love the 7-8%, the whole thing, but they really appreciate the time is saved from them haggling with, hearing this from a broker, hearing that from a supplier. We're the ultimate funnel accountability. So if somebody's talking or claiming or saying, that's fine. Let us do the work. We'll put it through our process and let's see how it comes out in the wash. If they were telling the truth and they're really the greatest thing, they'll win the auction, won't they? Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen, as you can imagine. We need 2 documents. One's called a letter of authorization. It's a 1-pager. It just gives us authority to pull your usage from the utility, so we know what we're doing, the data, and it gives us a temporary period of exclusivity, so we can actually put this together, and the utility knows that we have your authority to pull this, as well as a supplier pool. And then we have an exchange agreement. That's just a 2-pager. It's a licensing agreement, essentially, giving you. There's a built-in NDA. We don't talk about you. You don't talk about us. You can use our platform. And the only thing we ask in that is that if there's some disruption in the market while we're in that 2-week period I mentioned, something crazy happens, a ship gets stuck in a canal, the start of another pandemic, whatever it is, we're going to alert you first, and we're probably going to cancel that auction. And we just ask for another 2 weeks to come back until that's normalized, where it's just a cooling period. That's all we ask, but there's really nothing legally binding or overarching. 2 documents, some bill copies, a contract copy if you can send us one, and that's it. Really pretty light lifting from the customer perspective.
So I have a question. What do you think is like an important question a potential customer should ask but rarely does?
I think what I hear is, well, why should we make the change to you? We've had our broker for years. What are you doing different? And to that, I answer your question with a question. Well, what has your broker recently done in the last year to change the way he, she, or they might serve you? I know what we've done. I know we put millions of dollars into our platform, and we're constantly enhancing our technology. We change things weekly on this team. Our IT team, our software team's the best. Our pricing team, we're constantly adjusting, monitoring our own internal strategy to serve our customer. And the bottom line from the business side is, if your broker's sending you some bids from 4 or 5 suppliers and it's an Excel sheet, I don't see, pun intended, a lot of transparency in that. A lot of what's happening in this industry, from you name it, utility supply, supplier advertising, brokers, it's pretty opaque. We're named Transparent Energy for a reason. So that's one of the things. Why work with you? Well, it's a completely transparent process. You're in the driver's seat. There is no room for human error. There is no room for any smokiness, if you will. And the 7-8%. The 7-8%. If your broker or your in-house team isn't taking you to the market at the right time, experiencing margin compression, which they can if they're not using our platform, increasing the supplier pool and eliminating risk, the futures risk that we strip out, then you're overspending.
That's great.
No, say for the time thing I mentioned too, it's a lot. A week and a half, 2 weeks, that's it. We do all the work, as opposed to a lot of folks I talk to, sometimes it takes weeks or months to finally get a contract done. So the time is another huge part of this.
No, that's great to know and to hear, and it really does sound like a full transparent process that any member should take advantage of. I
just want to say I'm a really bad salesman. I'm not a salesman. I'm a process expert. I really don't have to. I love my job. I believe in the process. We've got a great team here, the TE family. We're happy to serve you. And quite frankly, if we don't do every single thing, we're a results-based company. We exist purely based on results. So if we didn't do what we say we can do, our company wouldn't exist. I believe in our process and our people, and honored to serve you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and you as well, Jane. And I just want to encourage all of our members, if you're watching this live, you'll receive the recording link. You can share it with your CFO. If you're watching this recording from our social media platforms, feel free to make a comment below, and we'll definitely get back to you with an answer. But thank you, David, and thank you, Jane, for your time today. And I hope everyone has a
Thank
good
you.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.